Hello and welcome to the GrowVC Everyone Funding Startups podcast. Thanks a lot for tuning in. I'm Brett Bivens, and I'm here today with Matthew Dawes, Managing Director with All Amber, a firm that organizes top-level events and conferences throughout Africa and Europe. Later this month, Matthew and his team are putting on a conference called Mobile Web in Africa in Johannesburg, South Africa, which features some great speakers that we're going to talk about later and attracts some of the brightest people from around the continent. So, Matthew, thanks so much for joining us today.
Hello there.
I'm sure you guys are really busy getting final preparations done for your event and everything coming up.
Yeah, just a little bit, yeah. It's good, though. It's a very exciting stage of the conference, you know. We're just putting the final touches in, making sure we cross the T's and dot the I's.
Yeah, exactly. So I mentioned that you're a managing director with All Amber and have been, instrumental in building Mobile Web in Africa into one of the top conferences on the entire continent. So can you give us some background on what you were doing before you became kind of involved in all of this?
Yeah, for sure. In effect, I started off doing events in the defence communications when they were just digitising the battle space. And then after a while, I made a bit of money and decided to go travelling. So I travelled the world for about a year and a half, I think it was, and then came back and decided I didn't want to stick in the defence industry. So I joined the Commonwealth Telecommunications Organisation doing events and a bit of research and business development for them. And that was, so we were looking obviously like the Caribbean islands into India and Africa. And it really sort of became apparent that mobile in Africa was the thing, despite being called the Telecommunications Organisation, that mobile was the thing. Because of the diplomatic nature of the organisation, we were doing a lot of the work we were doing was on regulation and policy and how to sort of embracing the private sector. And I worked there for about 3 years, and there didn't seem to be an awful lot of progress. And then in the end, I left, and I ran an event for another company, which was in effect like a mobile web in Europe event. And then it all just started to kick off in my mind really about setting up a company and running mobile web in Africa. And then, yeah, I mean, sort of once the recession kicked in, and they asked my former employers asked me whether I wanted to do finance or human resource events, and I said to them that I didn't particularly find that interesting, and that maybe I could take some of my research and set it up, and they let me go, which was great at the time, and I set it up, and I think I started All Amber in June 2009, and then ran the first mobile web in Africa in October 2009. So that first event was because I did it all on my own as well, so it was really hectic, and it was a massive learning curve, but hugely successful as well.
Wow, so this will be the third year of your conference, right? Mobile Web Africa.
Yeah, exactly. Third year, yeah.
Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about it? Kind of what the primary goal of it is, what the mission is, and give us some background on that.
Yeah, for sure. When I first ran Mobile Web Africa, I set out to run one event in South Africa, then I wanted to take it to East and West. And the premise behind the event is growth in the ecosystem, particularly looking at sort of content and services and apps and internet, because it's just so important, In Africa, the mobile phone has become the device of choice, It's the piece of technology that most people interact with before any other piece of technology. So I wanted to embrace that and particularly look at the potential that existed in the applications and internet, and it's massive as well. If you're looking at South Africa, I think it's at the weekend 65% of the searches on Google are done on mobile handsets, and just across the board, it's really mobile is the thing. So if you combine the mobile device and then the power of the web as well, that's a huge area to look into.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, you've kind of been working in the region for a while. So how was kind of the mobile landscape, I guess maybe in South Africa specifically, but then Africa as a whole changed during your time with All Amber down there running these events?
What's interesting is that if you look at South Africa is such an individual part of sub-Saharan Africa because of the different sort of history behind it, and it's a really well developed ecosystem in South Africa. It's to the point where I think it's over the next few years you're going to see some consolidation, and you're already seeing that happening, and so that landscape is set. It's sort of set in stone almost in South Africa. It needs to get out to the sort of the lower pyramid still, but then there's people working really hard on that. And then in the other countries in sub-Saharan Africa, there's a huge sort of tide of momentum behind mobile, and people are really working hard to try and embrace it and to create the local content. And the danger is, of course, that if people don't produce that local content, that you'll start to lose some of the individual languages, and also that other people will embrace it and bring it in and run their own services and content that may not be ideally matched to the local landscape, because that's the crucial thing. You know, people who live in a country know what needs to be produced, and that's what these events are all about, really, just to really push forward on that side of things and look at sort of content and user experience and develop relationships across the different stakeholders. So whether you're a startup or, for example, in South Africa, the first year we have this interactive roundtable where we set the events up like a wedding reception, and it was such a pleasure to see sort of an NGO sat next to a mobile marketing company. And then they're talking about it, and the mobile marketer obviously knows how to get information out across mobile. And then the NGO, they're desperate to sort of use mobile and utilise it. And those sorts of relationships are just fantastic.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that it's such a... I mean, the whole sub-Saharan Africa is, really growing and becoming so much more modern, and the mobile landscape's obviously changing with that. What have you seen in terms of, we hear in the United States about Android, Apple, BlackBerry to a lesser extent. Kind of which companies are winning the mobile war in Africa from a smartphone perspective?
Well, that's the interesting thing, because if you look at, Apple, there's a few sort of Apple devices out there. Android's really taken a big punt in Africa, and it's developing brilliantly. But then BlackBerry is doing well. But it's those OEMs. That landscape in particular is really exciting, and it's changing, because you've got the My Phones of this world, and you've got Huawei. And if you look at Huawei, when they launched their $100 smartphone in Kenya, they took 60%. I think it's 60% of the new phone sales in the first month. And in fact, Kenya's unique for them as well, because it's the only country where they've gone in and established themselves in the market and have maintained their sort of number one position. And that's because in Africa, the consumers are very, very price sensitive. So if you can offer the cheaper handsets, then people will buy them. And I think all the Huawei handsets are Android, so that's one of the areas. But my phone, I think they're based in the UAE, but they're only 3 years old, and they're shipping handsets at a really exciting rate, and Nigeria is great. Nigeria is just about to really embrace these cheaper devices, and even on the tablets. I think there's 2 companies in Nigeria that produce their own tablets. Have created them. They get them made in China, and they're selling their own tablets. How brilliant is that?
Huh. Yeah, I mean that's incredible. It's all kind of changing right before our eyes, and obviously right before your eyes, since you're so involved down in the region. Backtracking a bit, going back to the conference, looking at the website, looks like you have just a phenomenal list of speakers and a great list of workshops set up. Can you kind of outline some of the people and some of the events that you'll be having at this year's conference?
Yeah, well, we've tried to expand it. So the first year I ran it was just a simple two-day event. And then this year we've teamed up with Mobile Monday Johannesburg, so we've got their end-of-year celebration. We're sort of linking up with them on the Monday night, which is Monday the 21st. And then we've got a whole day focusing on mobile marketing, where we've got some of the leading people like Vodacom coming in. We've got some incredible case studies on that day. It's all about sort of the practical realities of mobile marketing. So we've got someone coming in talking about mobile, how they've integrated a mobile game into a couple of campaigns. And we've got a lot of work on brands and how brands need to be aware of sort of their management